All right, seeing none, let's move to the monthly budget report. Tim?
Yeah, you have in your packet the May financial report. Obviously, we didn't receive the June financial report in time for this board meeting, but I'll give you an analysis of that at the August board meeting along with the July financials. The August meeting is late enough in the month that I'll have the July numbers, and we can do both months next month. But for the month of May, our monthly revenue was in the operating funds was $450,000. That puts us at about 105% of budget through the first 11 months. The majority of that is in real estate tax revenue, the lower than budgeted tax refunds, as well as the reimbursements that we receive from the state for special education and transportation. The monthly expenditures, $3.3 million. The reason that's higher than it normally would be is because we do 6 payrolls during the month of May. We do not only the May payrolls, but we also do June and July. And then for the certified staff and for the non-certified staff that are the 10-month employees, so then we don't have those payrolls in June and July. At the end of the 11 months, we're at 95% of budget on the expenditure side. So we're in good shape on both ends of that. Our operating fund balance, $7.7 million. There were several questions on the financials. There's an account that is in the revenue side on page 13. It's a tuition revenue account. It says tuition general, and we used that this year for the Camp College tuition. In the other revenue, other local revenue, which is 10-1999 on page 14, there was a credit there. That account is mostly used for transcripts, the students who pay for the transcripts, although those amounts are fairly low. We also used that this year. We received a signing bonus with HR Imaging, and we also received commission checks on the pictures that they sell. And so some of that money has gone into there. We did make a deposit into that account that should have gone into an activity account, which is the reason that there's a credit monthly balance in that account for this particular month. One of the bigger items was in the special education certified salaries. There's an account there that's about $180,000 over budget. I'm sorry, page 30. The reason being that we have 2 social workers that were budgeted in the student services department, but their salaries were paid out of special education. So if you look in the student services department, you'll see that there's a certified salary line item there that's $180,000 under budget, and it offsets that. I don't think this requires any kind of a board approved transfer because it really is, we could effectively make a transfer in the actual expenditures. And because the books are closed, I can talk to the auditors about making that change on our financials.
Well, and again, we could put it for a future meeting, but we need to, I think we need to understand when we have to make a transfer. Because the ISBA rules say you have to make transfers, and this is a pretty substantial difference in a line, and it talks about between funds and within funds. I don't understand when we are supposed to make a transfer within a fund. I mean, you've explained it to us several times when we had to go between funds, but it's completely unclear to me, when are you supposed to transfer have the board approve a transfer within a fund?
Well, I think as you highlighted, there's a rule that says the board has to approve a transfer if it's greater than 10% of the total expenditures in that fund. This would,
if it's more than 10%, you have to have you have to have another public hearing, don't you?
yes.
So if it's over 10%, you have to have a public hearing. But it also says if you have to do transfers in a fund and the board has to approve them, but it's unclear to me when does that trigger? It's something less than 10%, obviously, but why is the rule there if it never has to happen? I just don't understand it.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want,
Yeah.
one suggestion I have is we just it's come up before, is we just put it on a future agenda and understand, explain to us, when is that triggered, and should we be doing anything?
Well, we talked
Yeah.
about putting it on in August, correct?
Yeah, we can put you had sent that part of your email was a couple of different items that you wanted to put on a future
Right.
agenda. And I gave that to Mary Ann,
Okay.
to put on one of the future board
The other
meetings.
thing I think we wanted more or less to make sure we correct, though, is where should the social workers be, and why are we paying it out of two different? So is that an issue that goes on our management's position control document, or is that just a payroll oversight, that they charged it to the wrong account? We just need to correct that.
Yeah, we need to make sure the position control, which generates the budget number, aligns
Aligns
with
with-
the
right.
payroll, which is where it's going into the actual expenditure.
Because the confusion is, they're being charged to special ed, but their offices are located in student services.
Right,
So
yeah. So,
Any other questions on the budget,
I think you had a few more on
on the bills?
financials.
there were a few on the financials with regard to some of the stipend accounts that were over budget. One of them being the,
Page number?
page 33. A stipend account there in fine arts, and what happened was we had received a grant, a vocational ed grant, after the budget was completed last year, and we have an employee that was paid a stipend out of that grant, so that money came out of that line item that's over budget by $2,249. That money came out of a grant that we received. On page 34, there was a question regarding stipends between boys and girls basketball. One of those accounts is $8,800 over budget, one is $8,800 under budget. And I talked to Art this afternoon, and he said that had to do with one of the coaches was being charged to the incorrect sport. So,
Okay, is that just a payroll correction then that you can address?
yes.
Any other questions?
There was a question, page 39, stipend with the bilingual department. And again, that had to do with the bilingual grant that was written and approved after the budget was approved last year. So there was a stipend set up there that was set up as $10,000, and it was budgeted at $6,379. But the grant was approved later in the year, I think in September or October. Professional services on page 42, which is part of the Board of Education accounts, was over budget because of the additional architectural fees that we had when we brought in DLA and some of the work that they did. And there was a question regarding the salaries and the revenue for the open swim.
What page?
The expenditures are on page 45. The question had to do with the fact that the salaries were significantly over budget, much more so than what the revenue was. We put through revenue of a little over $9,000 in the month of June, so the revenue item is coming up to about $28,000. The salaries for swim lessons will be about $30,000. So in that particular those two accounts, we ended up with a loss on swim lessons of about $1,500 for the year. Some of that had to do with the number of employees that are assigned to work on the swim lessons, and I've talked to Todd and Art about making sure that when we assign employees, that we're not over assigning people based on the numbers of people that we think are going to show up.
Well,
So.
the fact that, so we got pretty significant influx of, it was like $10,000 different on this report, but that's been
Yeah.
somewhat remedied for the
Yeah.
next one.
Yeah, but we should still be trying to run a program to at least break even.
Yeah.
So we
That's a good idea.
we pay a pretty hefty aquatics director stipend, and that should be his job to balance out employees to swimmers and registration and going forward. So have Art and him look at that for me, okay? Because we should, the goal should be at least breaking even.
Yep.
Any other questions
that
that answers anything, Tim?
Is that it? No, I think that's.
Any questions for Tim?